Hello, BookTube and Twitter writing community. My name is Tom, and in this week's episode of Limited Unlimited, I will be reviewing the first chapter of Joshua Scott Edwards's An Ocean of Others, the first book in the Dance of Sibling Suns series. Is this role-playing game inspired story just a piece of fan fiction, or is it going to be a critical hit? Let's find out.
Joshua Scott Edwards's An Ocean of Others is the first book in the Dance of the Sibling Suns series. It's pretty new. I think it came out back in September. Um, I was really surprised, given the quality of the story, to see that Edwards hasn't gotten a lot of traction on this book yet. So hopefully, this review will bring a couple people over to read this seemingly really interesting, really well written piece of fantasy. I'm going to get into what I thought of it in a little bit more detail, but I do want to say that I think I might actually continue to read this one past the first chapter. We'll see how it does, but the first chapter definitely hooked me. If I was a reader and I was just reading like the first chapter of an unlimited book and I read this book, I would definitely keep going. In the city of Lewoken, this strange and mysterious event called the riot happened. And throughout the first chapter, we get a little bit of a sense of what the riot was, but we don't know exactly what it is. It seems as though the protagonist, Grimm, doesn't really know himself. It seems as though the other people in the city either don't know or don't want to tell him about it. It's very mysterious and ambiguous, but it seems as though it caused thousands of people to die and maybe mass amnesia as well, or at least amnesia on the part of the protagonist, Grimm. So in the very first chapter, you get these lines here that I'm going to read. Over 6,000 deaths before the noon bell tolled, yet only the ghost of a memory remained. Of the riot itself, I could recall nothing. Its bloody aftermath I would never forget. So this is something that recently happened that seemed to change the landscape of the city, even if it didn't change the circumstances that were going on too much. I remember reading that there was basically famine, and the famine is so bad that even after these thousands of people have died, people are still going hungry. When I'm reading something new, I'm looking to see not only can the author create a story that is compelling, but how good is the technical writing as well? And I think that Edwards throws in a lot of really catchy and clever narrative in this first chapter here. An example of that is when an impossibility becomes real, you never let it catch you unawares again. So these little details that work to build Grimm's character as our protagonist, and I'm going to read some other ones too, but I get the impression that Grimm is the kind of man who is your kind of reluctant antihero. So after we learn a little bit more about the world and Grimm and what he does, he's a bounty hunter, we get put right into the action, and Grimm is on the hunt. He's chasing down his target, and he finds himself in the poorest section of the city. And there's a part of the city that is called the docks. And the docks kind of remind me of, if you've ever played Dark Souls, it kind of seems a little bit like maybe Blighttown, where it's basically like these scaffoldings or these like really loosely put together structures that are on the side of the city overhanging the water. And I'll just let Edwards describe it himself. I'll read this section. They called this man-made monstrosity the docks, as if it were comparable to the actual docks of the more reputable districts far below. No ships could be moored to them, since they hung precipitously over the water, unreachable except by climbing the hill of the old district. No one hauled cargo on them. They probably couldn't handle the excess weight if tested. They weren't flat, like most docks, but multi-tiered and connected by rope ladders and wooden trusses. The name made no sense except as a petty proclamation by the small men of the Blight who engineered it, whereas capable of the rest of you. So again, this is another one of those little world building details that I think makes the story really come to life. I wanted to read this section because I thought that it did a really good job of describing what kind of reluctant protagonist the Grimm is. I weaved my way through the dangerously dense crowd, careful to guard my pockets from picking, more careful not to push anyone over the edge, most careful not to step on the edge myself. So you can see that he's mostly concerned with himself, but he is also thinking about the other people that he's running past as he's chasing his target down and trying to catch this guy. I just thought that it was an interesting detail. It did speak a little bit to his character, and I wanted to point it out. So Grim is chasing his target through the blight, through the docks, and he finally manages to catch up with him when his target is captured by a member of the agency. And my impression is the agency is kind of like an alternative to bounty hunters, where they are more like really effective guards, perhaps, or people that are sent out specifically by the government to go and capture people, basically state sponsored bounty hunters. Whereas Grimm is more of like an independent contractor. So Grimm manages to track his target down, but his target has been captured by one of the fingers, which is the people who are employed by the agency. Ever since Ulkin convinced the city council to establish his agency, bounties had come scarce and ill rewarded. So I guess the agency is just so effective at what they do that they've basically driven the independent bounty hunters out of business. Again, another one of those interesting little world building, kind of like intriguing. I was wondering, why are there no other bounty hunters? What is it about the fingers and the agency that is so compelling to all the former bounty hunters that they would give up on their independent trade? So Grimm's target is captured by a finger of the agency, and as they are kind of bickering back and forth, like this is my target, and Grimm is trying to convince him he just wants a locket that is on the target. He doesn't want the guy himself for a bounty. They're bickering back and forth, and the man who Grimm is chasing turns to the finger, and we find out that he has some sort of magical powers that's described as arc fire. Don't really know in the first chapter what that means, where it comes from. Don't know the magic system yet, but he turns and blasts the guy that's holding him with fire, and Grimm, in an instant, shoots him with his crossbow, dead. But in the process, the guy basically explodes. Grimm ends up saving the finger's life, and you can see that there's a little bit of respect and camaraderie there. The finger offers Grimm a job. Grimm seems like he's probably not going to take it, but maybe he will. There's a lot of things that we're left with at the end of the chapter that are open ended and that leave me with a lot of questions. And that's questions in a good way. At the end of a chapter, I really want to have a lot of questions that I feel like I need to be answered. And I have a lot of questions about the world building. I want to know what arc fire is. I want to know how people get it, why people have it. Does it have anything to do with this mysterious riot that happened that no one seems to remember, that people say is caused by nothing, no one? I want to know more about Grimm. Why is he the last bounty hunter? Where have all the other bounty hunters gone? I want to know more about the world as a whole. Why is there a famine? We have this strange glowing note that the target dropped on the ground. I want to know, was there something written on the note? Is what is the deal with that? So I think that Edwards has something really special and really interesting in this book. I'm going to keep reading it. I may even end up doing a full review of it when I'm finished. At the very least, I'll leave it on Amazon, but I might do a video review. We'll see. It's not part of my plan, but I actually like this book so much that I might change things in the future. We'll see. So, would I recommend picking up An Ocean of Others and giving it a try, especially if you have Kindle Unlimited? Absolutely. So far, Edwards has everything that you need for a compelling first chapter. He's got a cool protagonist, he's got good world building, he's got mystery, intrigue, he's got a diverse set of characters. There's a lot going on, and I'm really looking forward to finding out more about this story. If you enjoyed this review and you're curious about some of my own writing, my book, The Reaping of Xanadu, is an epic fantasy story that was just released on Kindle Unlimited as well. So check that out. Leave me a review. If you're interested in having your book reviewed on my channel, you can find me on Twitter at StevensonBooks, or you can send me an email at tcstevensonbooks@gmail.com. Thanks, everybody.